Woo! Welcome back to What's in a Game. On today's show, we're talking about the two worst words in sports, if you're a fan of one of the teams. Game 7. As the Denver Nuggets force one through their most impressive victory of the playoffs and maybe of the whole season. And we're doing a playoff mailbag. Drop your questions in the chat and we will answer them as the show goes on. We're talking Nuggets, we're talking Thunder, we're talking all things NBA playoffs. Stay tuned. All right. Welcome back to What's in a Game. I'm Grace Jean here with my co-host Will Jones on this lovely Saturday. How are you doing, Will?
I'm doing good because we forced a game 7, and I see Genghis Juan, Kirby's left hand, and Spencer in the chat already. So hello to you guys. Welcome, Spencer, to your first
Yay!
live stream for us since.
Hello, Spencer. Hello, friend.
But yeah, no, I'm good. I enjoyed the victory. Taking the Thunder to 7 games, as much as I don't want to sound like harping on moral victories, is an accomplishment in itself. Like, I know it's kind of maybe corny to say because you want to actually win the series, not just be like, wow, great job, team. But it really is like impressive, even though I was probably the most angry I've ever been at the Nuggets after the 4-5 games loss. But
Yeah,
I had
you
already
were.
said they exceeded my expectations. And then I was kind of like regretting saying that because, goddamn, I was so mad we lost those. But we're still alive and forcing a game 7. So what can you ask for? And I did pick them in 7. So
You did, and I trust that Will be okay with me exercising my judgment calls when I choose to share certain things that we talk about offline, online, offline, whatever. But after that game 5, you were mad after game 4 for sure, but after game 5,
oh
you were ready to quit the sport.
yeah,
And I reminded you, like, hey, you picked Nuggets in 7. In
yeah,
order to get there, they have to lose 3 games.
yeah. You got to lose 3 to get
Right?
to 7. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about how the series has been going and if it's what we expected, which definitely isn't for me. Even though I picked Nuggets in 7, and it could end up that way, the way that it's gotten there has not been what I expected. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, the texture of this series is definitely going to be a topic of conversation. Before we jump into our main topics today, please do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps us out with the algorithm. We're still trying to grow the channel. We still have our goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers by the end of the playoffs. We're currently at 899. It's still at the number it was when I made these show notes. Please help us out and hit that subscribe button. We really, really appreciate it. Okay, before we jump into the games, we have a couple of really bleak, both for Nuggets and maybe NBA fans as a whole, news items to go over with respect to injuries. So we're going to talk about the other playoff series, but by now everyone knows the Knicks have knocked out the Celtics. But in that game 4 that the Knicks won to go up 3-1 against the Celtics, Jason Tatum ruptured his Achilles. We got the news, I think the next day after he'd already had surgery. There's an indefinite timeline on his return. I mean, with an injury like that, you kind of expect it to be at least the full season. He's obviously not going to be coming back in these playoffs because the Celtics have been eliminated. But that was really big injury news that I think rocked not just Celtics fans, but NBA fans as a whole, because I think that really changes the texture of the Eastern Conference.
God, yeah. For next season, I was just saying how we hadn't had major stars be out for a whole season for what feels like a while. Like last playoffs, I don't think anyone went down to set them up to miss a whole season. And now we have Tatum,
Yeah.
Kyrie. Trying to think of anyone else, but I think that's mostly it. But yeah, that's going to change the Celtics' outlook. Like, there's already people theorizing about who they might even trade or how they're going to change considering this injury, which is pretty wild to think about. And they're really expensive. They've been sold, so they weren't going to be able to hang on to this core for much longer anyway. I could see them like hanging on to some guys or adjusting. Maybe they just take like this season off, this next season, and then see how they want to move assets around after that.
I think it's really going to be important to Boston what his return timeline is. We haven't really seen this injury to a star player since Kevin Durant, right? And he was out for, is it like a season and a half?
When he tore his
I'm trying to remember at
Achilles.
what point in the season when he tore his Achilles.
That was in the finals.
Um, it was in the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And he came back.
and yeah,
Yeah. And then left the Warriors after that.
right. But
Or maybe
he
he went
wasn't
to the
back
Nets when
for
he was
the.
hurt. I can't remember.
He did go. He did go to the Nets when he was hurt.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember if he was even like healthy enough to play in the following playoffs. So I don't.
Wasn't. Yeah, he might have missed that one. I don't know.
It's tough. Those bubble years are
He had to have,
they're a
but
blur.
yeah. Anyway,
And then from there, like we've seen the injury happen. Brandon Clark, I think, is the most prominent example in my mind of an Achilles injury, and he got that injury toward the end of a regular season, and then came back within about a year. It was about almost a year, like to date, of the injury. It wasn't necessarily himself when he got back, and the Grizzlies were already in such an abysmal place because that was the season that it was last year where he was suspended and they were bad and then they were worse. It was just bad news all around for the Memphis Grizzlies that season. So we didn't get a chance to see if Brandon Clark would get back into sort of playoff form by then. But also, he's a role player. That's a very different kind of burden. So there's that aspect of the calculus for Boston is, are they going to be trying for next season? Because I know they did win Game 5 in dominant fashion. Mind you, they looked the same way that they did in the beginnings of Game 1 and 2 without the fourth quarter collapses that allowed the Knicks to take the lead in the series anyway. So they were able to win a game dominantly without Tatum. Game 6, I can't say you can... I don't think you can say, like, oh, this is what Boston looks like without Jason Tatum. Because, and a lot of Celtics fans were noting this too, and maybe it's Cope, but that team did look emotionally drained by that Game 6 against the Knicks. And you could tell it wasn't just like, oh, they're missing shots and like their process is off and they're missing their best guy, who is Tatum, who does create those advantages, etc. Defensively, they just like they weren't in it. So I don't know that you can judge like what would this team look like if they like ran it back without Tatum in terms of like how much could they make the playoffs. It's the East, so we know they could make the playoffs, but would they be a competitive team? And would that even be let's say Tatum can't come back for the next playoffs, which I think is the assumption for a lot of people
yeah, I'd be surprised.
right now. How far could they go? Because again, like it is the East, like you know,
they could
who
still make the
knows, right?
playoffs. I think with this team in the core because they have so many. They have players. They have depth. I'm seeing some comments about the Celtics. We have Joe D and New Orleans, I'm assuming, are the Celtics sellers. So it's like, yeah, could they sell KP?
So
Could they sell Jaylen Brown?
So the Celtics are currently over the second apron. I believe that's the second season in a row, right? They, or maybe it's their first season. I think next year would be their second season in a row over the second apron. They're currently projected to be, I believe, $20 million over the second apron next year if they ran this roster back. Both Porzingis and Drew Holiday make over $30 million. So figuring out a way to salary dump one of those guys would be enough to get them under, and then they just kind of move on from there. And both of those guys have had like really up and down seasons, especially Porzingis because of the injury part of that, like where he's only playing like half the year, if that. And there were already reports coming out of ESPN within the last month about how the Celtics were probably going to be sellers regardless of how the season ended. We joked about it, I think, over last offseason where, everyone was lauding their ownership group for going to second apron and like plowing fearlessly forward to, put their team in the best position to compete, and then immediately selling the team.
Yeah, it's like,
Because,
do you want to
yeah,
have
no, go
that
ahead.
expensive of a team when you can't really compete next season? And yeah, I mean, they you can't let these years in the second apron stack up.
Yeah, because we'll talk about more of the intricacies on some of our off-season shows, because I love talking about CBA and cap stuff and all of that. But, one of the things is, freezing draft picks that are so far out, getting moved to the back of the line, which is whatever for Boston. They're always at the back of the first round, like just perpetually because they're so good, but not being able to trade those picks, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Plus the sheer cost concerns, because the Celtics right now are projected to be a team where they might actually be spending more money on not just salary, but the associated luxury taxes, because it's not just the penalties over the second apron, but for every dollar you're spending over these caps, you're taxed an additional amount by the league that gets kind of divvied up by various entities, including like the players, etc. Um, to where their payroll, including luxury taxes, could be more than the actual revenue of the franchise, that was the intention, right? Was, okay, we have to actually make this onerous enough so that the Joe Lacobs of the world, the Steve Ballmers of the world,
Will be somewhat
that don't
deterred.
care, like, okay, right. And it's not, yeah, so the money concerns coupled with the roster building penalties. Uh,
Yeah.
but obviously, like this whole thing starts with Jason Tatum. This guy has played more than anybody
Oh right.
over the course of his career, and he's only Dan Favale's joke. Jason Tatum, he's only 19 years old. He's only 27. But he just plays. He plays all the time. He plays hella minutes. The Celtics always go deep in the playoffs. Got a lot of miles on his body, and I don't necessarily know that that's what causes something as a freak accident like an Achilles injury, non-contact stuff. Like, it happens, right?
Hmm.
That's the
The risk.
price you pay, the risk you take, right? The risk you take as a professional athlete. But I'm sure he's going to attack his rehab. Like, he's definitely seems like a guy that's going to attack his rehab and come back in
Yeah.
as best shape that anybody could
Yeah. He'll have
from
time to
this.
come back, and he'll still be one of the top players for sure. I think for a
Yeah.
while. But yeah, I have also heard some Jaylen Brown to the Nuggets ideas thrown out there from
I
Jovan
think people
Jovanovic from Serbia.
people don't
Hello.
realize that Jaylen Brown makes more than Jokic.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to trade Murray to get him and more.
Yeah,
So it could be interesting.
that doesn't quite work out. That means it's even more top heavy by a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, so I don't, just in terms of my, you know, immediate predictions, I don't think that the Celtics are going to trade any one of Tatum, Brown, or Derek White. But they'll probably be looking to move off of Drew and or Porzingis. And they'd probably love to move both, especially in light of this Tatum news, right?
Yeah.
And they might find buyers. Like, those guys they're tough contracts because they are older. Drew is declining, and then Porzingis is
Definitely
injury
tough.
prone and just continues to be that. But a team might be willing to take a swing on one of those guys because they can still be really useful players when they're playing, at their best, even at their ages. I was actually really impressed with Drew Holiday's defense in
Yeah.
this series against the Knicks, which I'll get into that when we get to that series. But I don't think that Boston's in a position where, oh my God, they're not going to be able to move these guys at all. It might take a while to find like the right buyer that has like the right thing to bring back, because they probably want like expiring contracts, if anything. But they'll figure it out
Yeah.
because they're not the worst assets in
True.
the NBA
Just a
by
little
a
expensive. You could get like
mile.
value out of
Yeah,
them theoretically before it gets real bad, but they are on the expensive side.
right.
But yeah, all right. Got some AG questions for sure too. So let's talk about him
Absolutely.
because
So the next big injury news here is Aaron Gordon. We got confirmation yesterday morning. I was so mad about this. Shams comes out with the alert that AG has a calf strain. They don't tell us what grade it is, like grade 1 through 3, I think is the worst one. Uh, and we got reports from Tony Jones and later Bennett Durando, both beat writers who cover the Nuggets, that he would be listed as questionable for Game 7, which was interesting because Shams' report was his ability to play is in doubt. So I was like, okay, is it going to be doubtful and then out? This is obviously really bad for Denver,
yeah,
right? AG has been to this point their arguably second most consistent player,
yeah,
um, and second or third, depending on the game or the stretch, most important player in
yeah,
these playoffs because of what he does for them on both ends and what he enables with their versatility.
yeah.
What was
AG's
your reaction to this alert, Will? Because I think everyone kind of knew that there'd be something coming out because he was grabbing his hamstring at the end of that game 6.
yeah. I mean, I was in the moment immediately panicked about it when I saw it in the game because I felt like the game was already kind of won. I know it was like Thunder were messing around a bit and maybe people were still nervous, but I felt fine about it. I felt like we had the game. And so him like hurting himself then extra aggravating for sure. But and I was just hoping maybe it was just like a cramp, maybe like he got kneed by Chet. Like oh, I was like in denial, like anything I can to think like he's gonna be fine. He kept playing, that made me feel better too. But you know you're kind of warm at that point and you're already out there. He only had to close it out for a little bit. And then he said he was fine after the game, so I was happy about that. But of course, what's he gonna say? Then you get the alert, which is I was just expecting it. Like, yeah, he has some kind of a strain, and I didn't know if it was going to be questionable or doubtful or out. That was like the status that I didn't had no idea what they were going to say, and we're already getting weird kind of comments from Adelman and others saying he's going through a walkthrough. Is that gamemanship? Is that truth? Like, you know, you can play through injuries, like Mike has been doing. But a hamstring's like you can't just go
Soft
out there.
tissues.
Yeah, you can't just go
I
out
guess like
there.
a sprain is also soft tissue, but when we're talking about like a hamstring or a calf, that's like stuff you shouldn't play through. We know Jamal tried to play through his calf strain last playoffs. It looked really like
Really bad.
atrocious with
But
very little exception there.
and AG's kind of
Uh
been playing with the calf strain already. You know?
well, he said his calf is fine and has been for a few weeks now, but now
Yeah.
it's the
But
hamstring that's bothering him.
in the Clippers series, he said he could barely jump,
I know. What was up with that? That was that game 2, I think. He's
and
like,
then he
I
had
can
the
barely
dunk to
jump.
win the game. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I've heard all kinds of different theories. Like maybe we should bring him off the bench, just play him limited minutes. Even that could help. Like maybe we shouldn't play him at all because you want to save him for the Wolves. Like where are you at in this?
So you mentioned some comments from Adelman today at Practice Media. He talked about AG going through a walkthrough. They're not doing like shoot around and like practices right now. Like these guys on non-game days, they are just trying to stay off their feet. They've been playing every other game since when was the last time when like in the Clippers series? I think it was between games 4 and 5, maybe that they had 2 games off. But other than that, they've been playing every other night
Yeah,
since
the first
like they went
round you
seven
get a little
straight.
bit more rest, but
Right.
weirdly we have rest right now because it's like game 7. There's no other games on. And here we are on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday night, no game, so we got a stream going and we're hanging out.
No, yeah, that's perfect. But Adelman um, mentioned AG going through shoot around. Also said if AG's available, he'll be starting. So
Okay,
the coming off the bench has been ruled out
rolled out.
as a possibility. He did say that they went through walkthrough as if AG was going to play in terms of what they talked about, everyone's roles, specific plays that are going to be run and at like moments in the game, things like that. Um, Also mentioned like sometimes in other games when they weren't sure if like Mike was going to be able to go, they've basically done the same walkthrough with other guys like working to like fill that role and knowing what they're going to be trying to do in certain actions that Mike is involved, whatever uh the role that they'd be filling. So it sounds like he's going to play. Like that's my immediate reaction to the comments that I heard today. It sounds like he's going to play. It sounds like he's going to try to play. The fact that it was questionable instead of doubtful was my first step off that he's going to try to play. My concern, one, okay, as a fan, my number one concern is he going to look like he shouldn't be on the floor? Is he going to look how OG Anunoby did late in the Pacers Knicks series last year, when he was like very clearly hampered, and everyone was like, "Is he gonna come back at some point and play? Because we could really use him." And then he came back and was like, "Oh no, he's awful. Get him off the floor." Or how Josh Hart did in that game 7 when he had the abdominal strain. That's a different injury, of course. But my point is, like, we still don't even know how bad the strain is. We talked about Jamal playing through his calf strain last year. He looked atrocious. And AG and Jamal have very different roles that are very taxing in different ways. So while so much of what AG does is reliant on strength and physically overpowering guys, which, yeah, like that includes using your hamstrings, unfortunately. Jamal, like, has to be quick. He has to create advantages. He has to come off of screens. He needs to get into his dribble combinations so that he can create space and, like, pull up and take and make shots. So, like, that's a different kind of strain that you could be putting on a soft tissue that is injured and, like, you shouldn't be playing on and all of that stuff. So I don't know if it's even right to compare those two, but it's really my only basis of comparison for guys trying to play through these injuries, because we've seen over the past 2 years in the playoffs, guys that get this injury, whether it's hamstring strain or calf strain, these particular lower leg soft tissue injuries, they still play. So
Yeah, especially in the playoffs,
I
they're
don't
like,
really
it's
have
time to go all out. But yeah,
yeah, there's something wrong with this team.
the
Wrong
zombie
or right,
nuggets.
right? Like we love to see guys play, but
We got the zombie
the
nuggets
Thunder are going
going
to be
here.
playing against the Uber Zombie Nuggets on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I just AG's so versatile. His floor is always so good that even when he's like kind of having an off game,
yeah,
like he can get you like 14 points and like some
like
rebounds.
he had 5 points last game, and I felt like he played a really good game
Yeah.
because he was rebounding, he was physically imposing. Like,
Yeah.
there were so many contested rebounds where he was just like, "Nope, I'm gonna be the one that gets this here." When there are 3 Thunder,
Yeah. And
like in the paint.
he has skill with his shot and touch and good passing and a great basketball IQ, but like his physicality is a lot of what he can bring to the table that like makes him really special. So if he's not 100%,
Yeah,
may look weird. But again, like we have, comments about MPJ, how many minutes is he getting? Like this is going to be a big game for Peyton Watson for sure. Maybe possibly if AG is limited and Mike's hurt and not playing very well, like if you just need
like,
one person to get you over the edge, play some defense here and there, that's what you have Pwat for theoretically. But it's just I don't know if he can answer the call or not. Like we'll see, and we'll see how good AG looks or not. Because if he's able to just like muster a game, that's cool. But also you don't want to like risk further injury for next season, and then it's like, and you don't want to risk him.
yeah.
And it's just tough. We have to get through this game to continue on, and this is only the second round. This feels like it's like the finals or something because it's like so many games that we played already, and it's like a huge stakes. But AG, just do you risk it for just to get the one game? Could be smart to just rest him too, and just because I still think we have a chance to win even without him. Like I know it sounds crazy, and obviously it's way harder, and the chances are less. But I didn't feel like it was definitely over, and we had no chance even if AG doesn't play, because of like the nature of this series and like the randomness of like who's going off, who's making their shots. AG went 0-3 in that fourth quarter, just like all the role players did in game 5. And I'm hoping some of those role players shoot better on the road in game 7 than they did in game 5. But you never know. It's like a road game. And game 7s are chaotic. You never know what the hell's going to happen. But there's some like specific scheme things that I am worried if AG is not in there for sure.
Yeah, my thing with it is, yeah, it's not really about the shooting for me, although it's like, well, AG, I trust to either make a layup or get a free throw when he's under the basket. There's not a lot, but a few guys in this rotation that I'm like, like, a layup attempt is almost a turnover. For those guys. And like you said, the physicality, it's not just what makes AG special, in like, how he makes this team special, but within this roster, we just don't have another player on this roster that can bring that physicality, like point blank period. So that would really change the kind of game that we were able to play, and in a game that is a lot of people are projecting to be a rock fight in game 7, and we'll talk a little bit about when we get to our game 7 predictions. We'll talk a bit about what we actually think game 7 might look like. It's tough to lose that element. Yeah, so prayers up for AG. He's probably going to play. I hope he doesn't get, further injured. I hope he's able to look, okay on the floor. I mean, to be completely honest, AG at 30% still looks better than half the roster at 100%. So, the other thing is just him being on the floor, or him being off the floor would create a minutes vacuum for guys that are just much lesser players, if we're being honest. And it's not just about what they can do or what he can do that they can't. It's the mistakes that he won't make that they will.
Mm-hmm.
And in a game 7, like, every little thing counts. So it's tough, but yeah, let's move on to how the Nuggets actually got here. Right. Well, we talked a bit earlier on in the show about how you felt after the Nuggets lost game 5. 112-105. Denver actually led for the majority of this game, which was interesting because they'd been trailing for the majority of the series up until that point. They ended up taking a commanding lead after a third quarter for it. I have in quotes in my notes here, commanding lead, because in this series, in the games that have been close, no one's really leading by more than like 12 at a time. And even then, that's not until like the end of the game. So like an 8-point lead feels huge, I think, for either team, with the exception, of course, of the like 40-some point blowout that the Thunder had in game 2. But Denver did collapse down the stretch, and they stopped scoring, and OKC's role players all made buckets. Will was furious when Lou Dort was making his threes. I think JDub hit a big 3, and then the game was basically sealed when SGA hit that step back. Because he hasn't been shooting well from 3 in this series, but he's kind of due for it. That's just a luck shot, right? You mentioned how you felt like that game was about 3-point shooting and like nothing else between the two teams.
Well,
do you want to elaborate on that and explain if your feelings on that have evolved at all?
Yeah. I felt like that fourth quarter, a lot of it came down to who was hitting their shots. Like, we went in with the lead in that quarter, and I think did we score 19 points in that quarter? I can't remember, but we only scored off free throws and Jokic is scoring, and then Jamal had a layup late.
Or no other made baskets.
And it's just like...
besides that dumb one at the end by Jamal to just try to get a quick 2 and extend the game.
And I get there's this cliched idea, role players don't travel, they're going to shoot bad at some point, but we had the lead, we had the game in our hands, and then to go like 1 of 14 or 15, whatever it was, the non-Jokic players went and just choked the game away. And then Dort's hitting all his threes, and Jalen Williams hits his open shot. And we had open shots too. Like the Thunder were leaving players open. They were daring Russ to shoot, like not closing out short. And then as soon as they're shooting it, trying to contest, but essentially giving them the shot and missing it. It's just like, if they just hit the shots, we win the game right there at the end. Even though, yes, we made one more.
Jamal had a bunch too in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, he had that wide open one. Oh, and I'm just so glad we got a game back, because if we lost that game and then didn't win game 6, and like you're going to the offseason with that kind of performance and that taste in your mouth and trying to like assess some of these players and like what offseason moves you want to do, as limited of options as we have, you're like evaluating these things. You almost were a game away from not even seeing Strawther in game 6 as well. So it was like, that was just a very frustrating game, and I was definitely angry at how we closed it out, especially because it was like the second time we choked. Like we choked game 4 too.
It was.
Essentially.
I agree. I talked about how they led most of the way in game 5. In game 4, which was that ugly matinee game with like 36 hours rest, Denver was, I thought, in control of that game most of the time, and they just like couldn't score. But neither could the Thunder. So to be fair, if the game hadn't been a matinee, maybe both teams would have shot better.
Yeah.
And Jokic in particular, that was his last like awful game in this series, I thought, in terms of shooting. But in games 5 and 6, Jokic has been back to himself, and we're going to talk about other contributors in game 6. But it's just so interesting to me how Jokic could have literally like his worst 3-game stretch of his playoff career in games 2, 3, and 4, offensively anyway, and then just be casually back to his dominant self. In game 6, he had 75% true shooting, and it didn't even feel like a Jokic, a dominant, like, oh, Jokic is killing these guys game. It was just like, oh, this is like, okay, Jokic
he can do something. Yeah, he's out there scoring.
No, like he was good. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, Jokic is back. It felt like, okay, Jokic is back to normal. But
yeah.
when I went and checked the numbers, I was like, oh,
Right,
what?
yeah.
He had this on this efficiency? That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That just that tells you a little bit about the standard that we hold him to, but it's also like why games 2, 3, and 4 were so like, okay, what the hell is going on here? Because regardless of the raw numbers that he was putting up, and the assists definitely weren't there, the turnovers were, and he's been better about the turnovers the last couple of games. The inefficiency was sort of like mind-boggling. Like, I don't remember seeing a stretch like that from him since, I think in his last MVP year, last season, he had like that December stretch where it was like a kind of rough-ish 4 to 5 games that included like 2 against Zubats, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't even, it paled in comparison to what we were seeing against the Thunder, and it felt odd. But he's back to normal, so that's really nice to see in both games 5 and 6. This series has definitely been an interesting texture, as I alluded to at the top of the show, right? Because Jokic has this dominant game 1. That felt like a dominant Jokic game, right? And so did game 5, I think, to a degree, because of the level of aggression that he was playing with. But it sandwiched, those 2 games sandwiched, this terrible stretch by him. And then in games, I think 3 and 4, for the most part, the role players showed up in different ways. So in game 3, which the Nuggets won in overtime, Jamal and MPJ and Aaron and Kurt, like everyone was kind of simpatico. They were shooting well. They were carrying the offense really for large stretches of that game. And then in game 4, I think everyone played well enough defensively to win that game. And you got, like, I think enough scoring from the other guys to win that game. You didn't get enough from Jokic, right? Game 5 comes around. Jokic is, like, back to dominant. It looked a lot more like game 1 Jokic, but we didn't get enough from the the role players, especially just shooting. Like you got an open look, like you gotta knock down that shot. And I don't think our defense was good enough in that game, to be completely honest with you. I thought that was the bigger issue. When we've been able to hold the Thunder to 105 or less, we've had really good chance.
Yeah.
In these games, and I we talked on our last stream about how I was most nervous about the Nuggets defense coming into the postseason. My frustration during the regular season was like, I don't think the Nuggets can win a game where they score less than 115 points. They've been able to do that over the course of these playoffs, to the point where I'm holding the defense to a higher standard now, where I'm like, okay, can you hold them below 110? They didn't do that in that game. Thunder scored 112, but we had to score a little bit more. It was like a little bit of both, but I thought the defense was a bigger issue because they weren't closing out fast enough to shooters. It's not like OKC made more, or they didn't make more threes than us. They shot a better percentage, but it wasn't like oh my God, they shot 50% from three game either. It was just like they
hit the
shot
big
well in their
ones.
open looks.
Yeah,
Right.
and the big
and
moments.
they hit their wide open looks, especially in the big moments. But I thought there were too many wide open looks.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. Like before
Yeah.
we move on to another point, like Game 7, can they muster up enough effort, like on the defensive end, to run a door off the line and Alex Caruso off the line? Like I know, like some of the strategies leaving guys open, just like they do for us, and that gives us advantages in other ways. But it's like they just have more opportunity, like we talked about with the depth, to have dudes go off on you. And we do too. It's just a little bit less. Like, CB and Pwat and Strawther have had moments where they've made shots in this series now. But so have the Thunder with their dudes. They didn't hit the shots in Game 6. We didn't hit the shots in Game 5. Game 7, you don't really know what's going to happen. It's at home. That may favor them. Can you, really put an effort to not give them those open looks? Because they have a better chance of making it. And so I think that's going to be important.
With the crowd behind them and everything. So I'd feel a lot better about it if we had just a couple more bodies in order to muster the energy to do that. But all right, let's talk about Game 6, because that's the fun one. This was another good Jokic game, as I alluded to. Very efficient, 75% true shooting. I think it was let's look at this stat line here. 29 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists. I'm always looking at the rebounds, and in particular, I like to just get to the advanced numbers and see what the rebounding percentage was, just to pace adjust things. Because I felt like, honestly, in games 2, 3, and 4, as bad as the shooting was for Jokic, and you could look at the rebounding numbers and be like, okay, 10, 12 rebounds, that's fine. But as many bricks as OKC had in those games where we were really clamping down on defense, those numbers should have been higher. So I felt like Jokic was not as dominant on the glass as he is both offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding. It felt like in the middle of this series, OKC was doing a really good job of keeping us off the offensive glass after we had that 22 offensive rebound Game 1 that helped make up for everything else that went wrong for Denver in that game, and they were able to eke it out at the very end, right? So those were nice to see. I think he's back up to, in this game, it was an over 30% defensive rebounding percentage, which I love to see. 31%. Love to see that from Jokic. So that was really good. I thought the team generally rebounded really well, especially on the defensive end. Jokic and AG were both huge parts of that, for sure. But really, watching this game from opening tip, Denver's offense was clicking. If you could bring up the clip of the Jamal 4-point play. These were Denver's first points of the game. So I'm trying to remember. Oh, right. So run an inverted pick and roll with Christian, and then they swing to Jamal. He's shot ready, takes a shot, and Hartenstein, really reckless closeout. This should have been a flagrant one, in my opinion.
This one's interesting because I saw the slow-mo, and it almost...
And Dort pushes Hartenstein into Jamal.
Yeah, and I don't know if the push really did affect him there, if Hartenstein kind of just did it anyway, because
he's kind of clumsy and whatever, so I put that mostly on him.
Yeah, it kind of looked like he just wanted to barrel into him. It's weird. It's just a weird closeout either way, whether it was Dort or Hartenstein. It was not what you want to see. It's pretty pretty messed up.
So I want to start with this Jamal play because it was really like this is what our offense looked like for a lot of this game. It was a lot of um, not traditional drive and kick, but kind of cut, get the ball in the middle of the floor, kick, and then just kind of work the ball around for advantages that way, which is what I've been wanting to see from this team against defenses that like to pack the paint, which on one hand, that particular possession ended with a Jamal Murray 3-point shot. It could have ended with a 3-point shot from anybody. Like, let's say they hadn't closed out to AG in the corner there. But you could also continue the drive and kick sequence and eventually get something down the middle of the floor, which we did at other points in this game. But that was how we were playing, and that I think they did a little bit of that also in Game 5, but they missed too many of their 3-point attempts. But what it does is it limits turnovers until like the very end of this game, where the Thunder were like forcing like dumb turnovers when the game was basically over. Denver did a good job of taking care of the ball in this game. Jamal actually led the team in turnovers, which is kind of surprising, but Jokic only had one, which was good because we were posting him up less. There was less of him getting sort of picked from the blind side and that kind of thing. But I thought that first play was very illustrating how our offense looked as the game went on. Really good spacing. We weren't forcing the ball necessarily to places where there wasn't open space. And we just kind of like flowed really well. We were taking what the defense gave us, but we were also taking advantage of the way that they wanted to guard, which was collapsing on everything every time. It's like, okay, if you're going to give us the advantage, we're going to keep extending this, work the ball around, and get a good shot like every time down.
Yeah, I mean, spacing, even if a team's trying to force you into something, you'll have more optionality if you are, disciplined on that front just by how you're setting yourself up. But also it's like, yeah, it is like a personnel thing. And like sometimes teams don't respect a player, and then that is negative spacing in some way. But for the most part, it was really good. There was like one stretch in the second quarter, or was it the first quarter, where we just like, oh yeah, as soon as Russ came in, and like
as soon as Jamal left the floor,
yeah,
and
then,
Russ came in, right? It's the combination of those two.
All the momentum was killed, and we did look a little bit out of rhythm, and even like with Jokic out there. So thankfully we got back in the game.
I went back and looked at that Russ stretch, by the way, and there was only one, I think, play that I didn't like, because there was the one where like Aaron Wiggins blocked him, but I don't think that Russ was trying to go up with that shot. I think he was trying to kick it to maybe Julian in the corner, but like just the angle that Wiggins came at the block, he got that ball. So I don't think Russ like misread the help necessarily. But there were others where it was just like missed layup attempt. Like you kind of expect that from Russ. And there was another one where they go under on his pick and roll with Jokic, and then he ends up just bricking a wide open pull up that you don't expect Russ to make. He had been making them in this series early on, but he just stopped, right? Like that's going to happen. But I thought otherwise, like Russ's process wasn't actually that bad going back at it. It was just like, ugh. The spacing is weird when you take Jamal, and I think it was Jamal and Aaron left the floor because they had to come in for the second unit at the top of the second quarter, and you come in with Russ and Peyton. That's just like, okay, we just totally talk about negative spacing.
Yeah.
And like those minutes have been an issue all playoffs. The Jokic minutes with Russ and Peyton on the floor.
Yeah, it's hard because what are you going to do with the way the defense can load up? But yeah, hey, Russ, you're used to that building out there in OKC. Can you have a really good vintage Russ game for us in Game 7? Give us some, like we just need a couple of the Russ plays to swing our way. And even if like his process is good sometimes, it can be like not good.
There was a play in that bad stretch, where he gets downhill after Case and Wallace goes under, but he's still out of position, and then Russ gets free throws. And I think he made both free throws. He made at least one of them.
And it's like,
that's the kind of like that's what he's there to do.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of dudes who can dribble and like create a dribble penetration. He's one of those guys. It sometimes ends up he smokes a layup, or he turns it over, or whatever. Sometimes it works out and it's great and gives us a different look. So someone who's trying to create an opportunity. And we did see Julian do that, though, if you want to segue to him, because...
We did. So I want to segue into Julian after we enter
Okay.
the Jamal segment, because I think what Jamal did in this game really helped to set up Julian's straw burst. And that term is courtesy of Jacob Rogero, who I think that was the name of his fantasy basketball team a couple years ago after we drafted Julian. So the straw burst is from him, popularized by D-Line from DNVR. So I love that, and that's basically what we got in the third quarter of this game to put us over the top. But I thought, again, great Jokic game, but it was really Jamal that put us over the top. He had a bit of a dry stretch early in the third quarter, but he kept playing within himself. So I wanted to just highlight some of the best plays from Jamal in this game. Let's go to the one where he beats Caruso off the catch here. A bit of three-man action with AG, and Jamal just gets all the way downhill. I thought his drives in this game, both in the half court and in transition, were just so controlled, so decisive, and yeah, I just thought he was great, especially getting downhill. Because you think of Jamal's signature games, and they're just like insane pull up jump shot making. And he had some of those in this game as well, but it was really his driving game, I think, that put him in a position to be the player that most controlled this game in terms of how Oklahoma's defense was going to react.
Yeah. Alex Caruso, I saw him. He was kind of high on a lot of whether it was like closeouts or like playing screens. Like he's super high up.
I think he's like, okay, Jamal's going to try to sidestep into his 3-point shot, and I'm going to be in position to kind of run him off the line and maybe contest.
Yeah.
So he did, like, I think the fact that Jamal is such a prolific like pull-up jump shot taker puts him in position a lot of the time to be an aggressive downhill attacker, but he doesn't always go to it, right? I thought it was interesting that that's what he went to in this game, that he was sick as a dog. Like, if you look at Jamal at any point in this game when there's not live game action happening, so standing at the free throw line while someone's taking a shot, or sitting on the bench, or if you saw his pregame warm-ups, you're like, this guy looks like he's gonna die right now. Yeah. But if you just watched him play, you wouldn't know it at all.
For sure. Yeah, I loved it from him. Really good shot selection.
Yeah, so it was great to see him getting downhill. Let's go to the next one where he's beating Case and Wallace around a screen. So he's on the ball here. Normally I'd like him to just kind of catch off a DHO, which is a nice screen set by Jokic. Case and Wallace is a good screen navigator, stays with Jamal. But he's like, oh, okay. I'm just going to get all the way downhill here.
Damn, what a
My
move.
note on this. Look at the coverage, Will. Does this look familiar to you?
It's like a... Wait, let's see here. Well, Jalen's kind of in drop. Are you saying it's familiar to the Nuggets?
Yes, absolutely. Because do you remember how much we talked about... Do you remember that play in Game 6 against the Wolves last year where I think it's Kat stays with Jokic, and then
funneling.
Rudy is coming in from the dunker spot. Jamal still has the layup available, but then he hits the side of the backboard.
Yeah.
That play sticks out of my mind. But the Wolves and other teams have employed this coverage where one of the things they do with the double bigs is having, the better rim protector roaming and then the bigger guy on Jokic. But when they run pick and roll, Jamal has this open lane to the rim, and it's like, okay, I still kind of have to get around this help defender here, but you still have the advantage because they're trying to come over. But so you have to be a good finisher. And then J. Will is offering like a token hedge, but he's like, I'm staying with Jokic. I'm not letting him just kind of get an easy catch and shoot off the pop here. So that's the coverage, and it was good to see Jamal just attack that again downhill. Like, I thought he was such a good downhill player in this game.
That finish around Chet was crazy too, because Chet's rotating as a low man, and Jamal's able to go to his other hand and throw it up on the other side of the hoops where Chet can't get it. So, yeah, really good feel on that finish.
Yeah. Definitely, talked about how Jamal's layup package, I think, can go band for band with anybody in NBA history.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the tough and one that he gets through Kaysen. So, runs pick and roll with Jokic, rejects the screen, gets through two guys.
It's like
Is
a
that
reverse
Aaron
layup.
Wiggins that comes over and
Yeah.
help there?
Yeah, I think
So
so.
it's like, okay, I'm definitely not going to hit stop by Aaron
Whew,
Wiggins.
just a step
Christian's going
through.
to cut. Ugh, beautiful step through. It gets the and one here.
Nice. Yeah,
Tough.
I love Jamal finding ways to score like that rather than trying to get going with like some mid-range jumpers that we know he can hit. But I like attacking them like this.
Yes. Now, the reason I wanted to go through Jamal's downhill finishes is because I really think that when I went back and watched the game, those possessions really helped to set up what we saw from Julian in the third quarter and fourth quarter. So in the first Julian clip we have here, he hits an above the break three. I think OKC is trying to sell out on the two-man game. Julian just came in to help get the basically get the mismatch for Jamal. Let's see who he got. It was for Shea, right? So Shea, I think at this point also had 4 fouls. I think he finished the game with 4 fouls also.
Yeah, he
so
never got another foul.
They're just like they're aggressively hedging to try to keep Shea out of the action. So we're just going at him, and the Nuggets have so many different ways that we can mismatch attack, and this was one of them, just trying to bring them into the action. It's not always about ISOs, but because they're aggressively hedging and trying to keep SJ out of the action, Julian just gets that wide open shot and he nails it. So that was good, but it was also good process. It was also great when the shot goes in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have the Julian corner 3. We got double drag here. Jamal gets all the way downhill.
Jamal
forces
brought
the help.
almost all
I think
5 players into the paint.
This is like too much help. Like SJ is roaming off of Russ.
Yeah, there's 5 players down there.
Jamal's got Kaysen there. I don't know, or he's got Chet there. I don't think like Kaysen didn't need to help this much, but Jamal had been, like I said, aggressively getting downhill with these ridiculous finishes, and so he helps all the way off of Julian in the corner. Julian gets the open shot and he nails it.
Yeah, I think the Thunder might be getting a little too used to having so much leeway with their help because of, who's been out there and Mike being hurt too. But with Julian, it's just another wrinkle they're not sure of. They're not sure whether to stay home on him at all. Like, there's no way they talked about that game planning before this game. Yeah. They'll probably fix that in Game 7, but I think even if they try to stay home on him and pay more attention to him, that's just going to help Jamal and Jokic too, just having him out there.
Maybe, and we'll see. Now, I think a lot of people talk about the way that OKC is guarding Denver as a Denver-specific phenomenon, but something we talked about in the series preview is how many threes OKC allows their opponents to take. They lead the league in opponent three-point frequency. They give up threes to everybody. It's not just us because of our personnel. They live with those shots. They do the same thing to Boston, right? They won 2 games against Boston this year by just kind of helping on everything in the paint, forcing turnovers, and then letting guys shoot threes. And they would get back out and contest, try to contest those things. But if you have an off shooting night, like you're cooked against OKC, right? And they won 68 games with that strategy. But in a game like this one, where Julian's making his threes, and I don't even think when I go to the percentages, Denver as a team, we shot 37.5%, which I think is like a little bit above league average, but that's just like a solid shooting night. So you don't need to shoot like a crazy well either to beat this if Jokic is also on and like making his stuff in the paint and you're getting like a few offensive rebounds and things like that as well. So you don't need like the game that we had in, was it March, when we had the most efficient jump shooting game in NBA history and dropped 140 on the Thunder in OKC in that
Right.
game that was on the back-to-back.
Right.
Um, you just need to make like enough of your shots to punish that. They're not going to change their coverage. Like they're going to keep playing you like that regardless. We saw last year against the Mavs that it burned them when PJ Washington in particular, but also Derek Jones Jr. just kept hitting their open corner threes. You got to make your open corner shots against OKC, because if you don't, or if you don't take them, you're completely letting them off the hook for selling out in the paint, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got the open corner three. Okay, the next one I have here is Jamal finding Julian open space. I love this. So this was to end the quarter. He got Hardenstein on a switch, but then Cason's coming over to hedge, and at the same, like they're fully zoning up on Jamal's drive, right? They're almost ignoring Jokic here on the pop, which they hadn't been doing. Chet's ignoring Christian, Kaysen is ignoring Jokic, and then Julian smartly cuts into the open space, and Jamal finds him. And I think that if you go to the NBA tracking, this is counted as an alley oop, which I
Nice alley oop.
Nice alley oop. Actually, could we go back into that clip, Will? I just want to see if Jamal jumps on this, because that's the real test on if it's an alley oop.
No, not really.
No, he just kind of like
I don't think he
hops on the pass, but not.
Yeah, he only does it if he anticipates like a dunk or like a play being made in the air, and Julian just kind of jumped and threw it up there.
Yeah,
which was smart because
so
the help was
I just
coming.
thought that as good as Julian was in this game, and he made his shots. Like that was the thing, right? We need somebody on this team to make shots, and that's what Julian did in Game 6. I want to give Jamal a lot of credit for not just setting up those possessions, but all the work he did earlier in the game to set up how OKC was going to be guarding him to create those opportunities for Julian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Julian. Well, yeah. First, credit to Jamal. I love that he's having like a quiet, like amazing series in a way, like where he's not like having a game where he's scoring 50 points or whatever, or like having his big game against the Clippers where it was like clearly he just like won the game for us. But like he's consistently, besides that fourth quarter in Game 5, like he had an amazing third quarter in that game and just like didn't keep it up.
If you could just give us another 3-minute stretch in the fourth quarter, it would have put the game away.
I know. We were one like amazing Jamal. It didn't even have to be amazing, just like a regular Jamal quarter of like having the series in the bag already. But whatever. Hopefully, Game 7, he's going to show up. Like, I like how he plays with his back against the wall for sure, and same with Jokic and the Nuggets in general. So hopefully we just see more of that. I just got one more clip. Julian's, I think this is his, I don't know if this was his last three, but
no, this is the fourth quarter one. This was the dagger that basically put the game away. Denver's already up 13 here.
Yeah.
And yeah, Shea's just helping off of Julian. I had been really annoyed with how Jokic was handling this isn't baseline help per se, but Shea's been helping on Jokic's post-ups a lot and just getting steals out of that.
And CB's in the dunker.
His man in the corner.
Yeah, CB's kind of holding down Cason Wallace so he can't rotate out, and yeah, it was just a really nice game from Julian, and I liked him even getting downhill and attacking and drawing fouls, which is not something we see a lot from any bench player besides Russ, of course, who can do that, but someone outside of like the point guard group who can do that, which is nice.
Yeah, there was that, I can't remember which game it was, but in this series where he kind of gets the ball. It's not quite a grenade, but there's, I think, 8 or fewer seconds left on the clock. Something like that. And like dribbles through traffic and finishes over like Hartenstein. And I was like, man, it'd be nice to have somebody on this team that could do that consistently. But I just didn't know if Julian was going to be able to stay on the floor. I was having a dialogue, a respectful dialogue with a Thunder fan online yesterday about how OKC has this issue, and I talked about it on our series preview with Matt Brooks from Nuggets Media, where I thought there's a possibility that we expand our rotation in this series going into it, because OKC hasn't really punished our bench guys. Like non-Jokic minutes like can be like good, bad, neutral, whatever. But they haven't like punished our bench guys as much as other teams do like over the course of the regular season. Just watching all of those matchups where it's like, the non-Jokic minutes weren't really our problem in those losses. Even Julian was able to play big minutes against OKC in that win, that second match of the year in November. Hunter Tyson played 20 minutes in that game, right? Not that I expected Hunter to play in the playoff rotation necessarily. Jalen Pickett played a big role in the game that we dropped 140 on them, right? So they haven't been able to play specific guys off the floor like other teams can. And that was one of that's the concern that you have with Julian, especially against such a good, ISO drive and kick team. At least like theoretically. But Julian has mostly been able to stay on the floor. Like when he has low minute games or DNP games in this series, it's not because of him. It's just like we have to get our best players the most minutes that we can right now. But he was able to go in for MPJ on another off MPJ night, and contribute and largely not be a detriment. Some space cadet plays on defense here and there, but not that much different from MPJ. Although I think MPJ has actually been decent off the ball in this series. It's more the on-ball stuff that's been an issue, ironically.
No, it's true. It's just like weird. Well, it makes sense. Even with his shoulder, he has the reputation as a shooter. Whether he's in a slump or not, it's going to help the offense just having him out there.
Right, but back to the point about OKC. Like the question I want to ask you is like, what is it about this team that makes them so unable to like mismatch hunt and mismatch attack effectively enough to play someone like Julian off the floor, or to capitalize on a Luka Doncic whose defense individually was not actually good in the playoffs last year, but he had a lot of good defenders around him.
Well, I just think they haven't had enough experience doing it yet. Like, I don't think they've identified when they should go to it. And, like, I think with JDub and Shea, so, like, even when players come together who are stars or who have similar, like, games, like, they're both mid-range dribble penetration type dudes, whether or not, like, they're still different players. They have differences, of course, but how do you, like, balance the give and take of, like, the your turn, my turn thing, and when does it come naturally? When are you forcing a mismatch hunt versus doing it in a spot where it makes sense? I think they just need more time to, like, figure that out.
I think that also, like, they need different ways to attack. I think, like, one of the things that when Porzingis first went to Boston, he gave them an immediate option to attack a switch, right? To where it's like, okay, we don't have to do the dribble penetration, attacking a bad defender, trying to initiate a driving kick, like that kind of thing every single time. Because some of those times, the guy's going to sit down and guard and you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's also a really, it's a very energy intensive way to play over and over and over again. Porzingis could do something a little bit easier, at least like last year. This season he's not been a good post player, but he had that post turnaround that was very efficient in the Celtics title year, right? That's what you would hope that Chet would become at some point, but he's not quite there yet. So their offense, I think, right now is very one-dimensional because they are so reliant on the isolation-heavy drive and kick game, whether they're mismatch attacking or not.
Which can still be, it's been more potent than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be more stagnant, and it has at times in this series.
Really? I think it's been more stagnant than I thought it would be.
Well, I think I had more of a low expectation for OKC, mostly because I wanted to hate on them and hope that their offense would be really bad. But just like seeing Caruso and Dort hit their shots.
I thought it would be bad, but I didn't think it'd be this bad.
I
actually?
think it's been better than I expected.
Okay.
Just because I'm like, these guys are hitting. They have it. Like, Case and Wallace can come in and hit a shot. Aaron Wiggins can hit a shot. Like, they just have so many guys to go to who can still do it. Even if, like, the process may be one dimensional, they can get results out of it
Well,
just by nature of
yeah.
how deep they are. But, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know that I would call it. It's not always stagnant, but it is always one-dimensional. It is always predictable, I think,
Yeah,
is
because it's like
the
ISO, or they're driving, they're kicking, or they're swinging the ball a lot.
or they're
You
trying to
know.
get us to try to get to the middle of the floor and pull up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they need a little bit more dynamism, and for that, I think primarily Chet needs to be better. And also, I think JDub and SGA, like these guys could still win the title, by the way. Like, they could still win Game 7. They could beat the Wolves. They could win the NBA Finals. So this is more about, like, a comment on how can this team get closer to a level of dominance in the playoffs that they exhibited in the regular season. I do think that it has to come on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like, their defense, I think, has... the defense has come as advertised, which is like really good, really disruptive. You can still beat it if you can shoot threes, right? Just like you can beat most defenses if you can shoot threes, right? But the offense has looked worse than even I thought it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about JDub a little bit, because we have Jay Kerr
Okay.
saying he's concerned JDub might have a killer game next game.
Yeah.
Obviously, he had a
Yeah.
very bad one in Game 6. As far as the shot making, I think it was, what, 3 of 16 or something. Like, we were talking, he made his first 2 shots and then went 1 of 14 for the rest of the game. And
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely want to get your thoughts on that. When I just went back and looked at the possessions and, like, his shots, his jumpers, a lot of them were open and he just didn't hit
Yeah.
them. Some of them were Jokic switching on him, because I almost thought, well, maybe AG just kind of locked him up because he's a good matchup for JDub. But, like, Jokic was on him a lot.
The Jokic late switches have definitely thrown him way off.
Yeah, and it's like you'd think he'd be able to attack and just go around Jokic, but Jokic has been putting up more, like, solid defensive effort, at least. I still think he could be, like, exploited in space, obviously, but J-Dub's just, like, shooting and missing it. He could easily make them, but also he just, like, had a horrible game finishing around the rim. Like, he smoked the dunk wide open in transition, and, like, he missed a
Yeah,
layup.
that was
Like,
just on him. Like,
yeah,
that had nothing to do with us. There was the one block that Peyton had in transition. I like, okay, there's a couple of different things going on here. I think the J-Dub stuff at the rim is a combination of decent defense on Denver's part, especially Jokic, especially on these late switches. Like, once J-Dub gets past his initial guy, Jokic just kind of steps up and takes him, and J-Dub is already going downhill. He doesn't really, like, change. So he's, like, a little bit uncontrolled on some of these downhill attacks, and isn't prepared to figure out a crafty finish around Jokic. These are like, okay, SGA would be able to figure something out in this situation, but J-Dub just isn't there with his game yet. So that's one part of it. When it comes to the jump shots, especially the pull-ups, I'm just like, we're not doing anything with him defensively here. He's just missing.
yeah,
And
which
these are
is
shots that
scary, but
last year he's had a bit of a down year efficiency-wise in the regular season, but his second year, he was automatic on these jump shots, and those again went away in the playoffs, in particular in the Dallas series last year. And now I'm watching, like you, just going back and watch these possessions. I'm like, we really didn't do anything
yeah.
with him here. The catch and shoot stuff doesn't make any sense to me, because he's been basically automatic on catch and shoot things in every, like, context I've watched him. Maybe he's overthinking things a little bit and hesitating off the catch, but I'm not really seeing it. He's just missing these shots.
Yeah.
Like, I really,
Every,
I can't. I was wondering if you saw anything in how we've guarded him, because outside of that amazing game 3, like, if the Thunder had won game 3, he would have been the MVP of that game. Just like Jamal ended up being the MVP of that game because the Nuggets won, and I think he was the best player. Ended up being the best player on the floor because in overtime, JDub completely like dried up. Like he couldn't do anything in overtime either. Um, he was like electric. He was getting downhill. He was making his pull-ups. I actually think his playmaking has been really good in this series.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that I hate about when we run zone with SGA off the floor is that the Thunder as a whole, and JDub in particular, but we've also talked about how Caruso has helped dice up our zone. They're much more decisive in their attack of the zone when SGA is off the floor and when he's not handling the ball.
Oh my God.
And JDub, I think he had a game in this series. It might have been game 5 where he had like, oh no, this game he had 10 assists, only 3 turnovers. I think his playmaking's been really good. He knows when to like draw the help and kick out to like a wide open guy in the corner, basically doing like what Jamal did in terms of like that level of playmaking, which is impressive to me because his passing and his handle was something I was more concerned about last year going like for the Thunder going to the playoffs. But his scoring now is like I don't know. I don't know
It's
why he
hit
can't
and
make big
miss.
jump
Yeah.
shots. Yeah.
Yeah. Caitlin saying maybe it could be some inexperience. I think yeah, there's something to that for sure. I kind of had almost moved on from the experience advantage because we were down 3-2. But yeah, and I thought that was more to do with the depth, the fact that we just consistently haven't had guys show up in 2 straight games, and now we're all of a sudden down in the series. But there are times like this where it's a closeout game on the road for them, and against a championship level team, they've not been in that situation. And could have been nerves for JDub. Could have been that the offensive flow wasn't necessarily there. When do they go to SGA? Like I still think SGA's shot is like just so good. Like it's gonna be there. Like I don't see him having a horrible game, even though there are times he's not as efficient as we know he can be. JDub, I did not expect him to have that kind of a game, but we're seeing it. We're seeing it happen. So do I bet on it happening again? I don't know. Like I do think AG does do a good job, but I don't think we've done anything super different defensively. Like we said, like the late Jokic switches and Jokic like kind of, it's almost like a drop on him. He's not playing tight on JW. He's going to get burned. So he's kind of playing off a bit.
He's just like kind of throwing off his timing a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's where I'll give us credit. But on every other kind of possession, I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like he's
But this
getting to his spot.
series has been a little bit of a make or miss series in some ways.
Yeah.
There are like amazing tactical things sometimes, and these are high level teams, but a lot of it is like they're leaving guys open and which team's going to hit them. And I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, since we're on it, we can move on to our game 7 predictions in terms of what we think this game is going to look like. So I want to start off with this. If AG were healthy, I actually would have given Denver a decent chance at this game. I originally said that this series was going to be Thunder in 5, and that has been completely blown up. It was almost blown up immediately because Denver won game 1, and I'm like, okay, Thunder are probably not going to win 4 in a row against Denver, but and they didn't. Great.
Yeah.
So I was wrong about that primarily because OKC's offense just has looked way, way worse than I thought it would. But I would have given Denver a decent chance in game 7, and here's why. If AG were healthy. Over the last 3 games, like everyone made a big deal about how the Thunder led for like 80+% of the series by game 3, right? And a lot of that was that game 2, but also in game 1, like the Nuggets were down for most of that game and then pulled it out at the very end. Sorry, can you hear the revving in the back?
That's fine.
Oh, you can't? Okay, good. Over the course of games 4, 5, and 6, Denver has led for the majority of those games. And at the risk of sounding like a Lakers fan that is like losing their minds about how Denver could win a series where they lead for less than 30% of the total time, it's like whatever. I only mentioned that because it's in contrast to how the series started. Like, it feels like Denver is starting to figure some things out, but they were just not able to close 2 out of the last 3 games. So I would have given them a 50-50 shot in Game 7 because that's how I feel about Game 7s. Like, they're just coin flips at this point. The thing after Game 1 that I wanted to see, because we did win that game, but Jamal not only didn't look good, but in contrast to the regular season, the last 2 regular seasons, because I based my film review in doing that series preview on multiple years of stuff, Jamal wasn't getting to his spots early on in this series. I do think that Jamal breaking loose is a big part of what has changed for Denver as the series has gone on. So it's not like everything that we're doing is like reliant on AG, but they're so dependent on having the 5 starters be able to play together. And AG in particular is so important to what they do, not just defensively, but offensively. Nobody else on this roster can do what he does. And while some other players have other strengths, theoretically, they're not good enough at those things to make me think that they could replace what AG does as a connector, as a maybe your most reliable shooter on the team at this point, as someone who grabs contested offensive rebounds. To where I really feel like, okay, Denver has maybe like a 10% chance at this game. But what do you think?
You have them at a 10% chance right now if AG didn't play?
Or if he played hurt. I think it's either way. Or like if he looks hampered, like if he looks like, oh, this guy shouldn't be on the floor.
Yeah. Man.
And he can't play. Like, we've needed the 40 plus minutes from him.
Yeah.
Or in some games, 36 plus minutes from him if we're like a slightly different, rotation. He's so important to stabilizing those non-Jokic minutes that have largely been okay in this series. Like, they have not been this massive negative when Jokic sits.
Yeah.
And that's because AG and Jamal are able to stabilize things in those bench minutes, right? I don't even know who would play backup 5 if AG like didn't play or couldn't
Zeke.
play, big minutes in that role.
It's time for Zeke.
No.
Yeah, it's really hard to guess. Game 7 is chaotic. Like it takes like one random person to go off. Like the way Julian Strawther had his game in Game 6 happens all the time in Game 7s for like other teams where there's just like some guy who goes off and kind of decides the game. So anything can happen. Not having AG, of course, sucks because we don't know if we don't have him yet, but if we didn't have him, or if he
not
was
having like
100% AG,
or at least like the level AG was playing at even last game, where it's like, yeah, he only had 5 points, but he had huge rebounds in that game. He was really good defensively, and it means that we don't have Peyton Watson having to play like 40 minutes in a closeout game.
Yeah.
Like,
there's always the chance that the Thunder get tight. It's a Game 7. They've not been in this scenario. So pressure could be on them for sure because they're the favorites. They're supposed to go on and like win this shit after the season they had. The Nuggets should theoretically be a little more relaxed and like confident in that sense. Like they've already done it.
They have no pressure on them in this game. Like they're not supposed to be here.
For sure. So that is good for us for sure. I did wonder.
Moral victory season is upon us.
Yeah. I did worry a little bit, though, if I'm honest, about AG being hampered or out because the way Jokic scored a lot in the last game were through actions with him and AG. Like if Hartenstein was on AG, AG was even initiating the action with the ball.
Yep.
Or we would even go with the ball to AG before running anything. And then get the ball back to Jokic, and Jokic would score. And
a lot of that is because of the matchups that OKC has been employing.
Yeah.
Right, where they'll have like sometimes Hartenstein on AG, and Jokic is like he's now hunting that Hartenstein matchup. That was giving him trouble earlier in the series, and now he's hunting it.
Him being able to score over
using
him.
AG to mismatch hunt both on and off the ball.
Yeah. So I do worry about if it's just going to make it harder for Jokic to just not have AG simply put. But Jokic is smart and he'll find a way. And he can attack. Like when they played zone late in the fourth in game six, or maybe it was in the third, but whatever. The Nuggets were building a lead and they went to a zone. Jokic just like pushed JDub right into the paint and just to get into the middle. Like you don't even have to flash, just like push the guy in there. So I like Jokic being aggressive like that and just trying to force his way and like making just shots over Hartenstein in the post with like a hook, like a pivot and a hook, where he hadn't really been doing that. And his touch almost seemed off in those 3 games. Looks back, so that's good. And like you have Jamal and Jokic, like you said, like those two are the ones that make Denver so hard to beat in a 7-game series. AG is a huge component in that, but those two are the like pillars. So they have the like ability to just like win this game for you single-handedly, like with what they can bring on the offensive end, for sure. But does having AG in there to not get rebounds, not be able to defend their wings and like their drives and like take away some things, and his 3-point shot providing spacing too. That's a lot of why those actions initiated by him work, is because he has the spacing to like deter anyone from even helping him off of him. So it's going to be challenging.
I don't know. I think the Thunder are helping off of everybody rather
Yeah,
equally.
but I think like Hartenstein was staying home more on him in game 6 than I would expect in terms of him trying to double Jokic so much.
Yeah. It almost depends on which Thunder player happens to be cross-matched onto you. I think SGA and Chet help off of whoever they're on regardless.
Yeah, and you're also not going to help like a strong side one pass away scenario, which often is in it. Most actions,
they help off of everybody's strong side too.
Okay.
Like Chet and SGA
Cool.
in particular, they're just like, I don't care who I'm guarding. I'm supposed to be guarding the guy who has the ball.
That's kind of how I felt, but I didn't want to like trash the. Not that it would be an insult to the Thunder's defense to be like they're even helping strong side, which is like a fundamental thing you often
But they
do.
do, and they're like, we don't care. They
Yeah.
break all the rules, and they end up a generational defense by the numbers anyway. And it's annoying. It's like, damn, you're not supposed to be like. It frustrates the offense. You're like, damn, you're not supposed to be helping strong side. What do I do now? That's annoying. They're not used to it because nobody does it.
For sure. But hopefully Julian can make up some of that spacing absence if AG doesn't play. So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
I'm curious about how the Thunder are going to come out. I will say the one thing I was disappointed about from OKC in Game 6 is that they didn't seem to understand the moment. This was not. I thought they would come out like the Clippers did in Game 6, and the Clippers were fighting to save their season, so that's a little bit different. But the Thunder are a 68-win team that went down 2-1 to the Nuggets, who fired their head coach with 3 games left in the regular season. They were on the brink of going down 3-1 to them, and then were able to pull away in that game and then tie the series up. Then they go back home and pull away again at the end in a game that maybe they, like, quote unquote, shouldn't have won. I'm going to talk about that when we talk about the texture of this series. So now they're up 3-2 with an opportunity to close out the series against a championship caliber team that is a bad matchup for them. Like, if the Nuggets were fully healthy, if we had like one more player, I would have just picked them outright in this series, regardless of how our season had gone, because I do think that they're a tough matchup for OKC. When you're should you move on from this series, your opponent, the Minnesota Timberwolves, closed out their series like how many days ago? And they were just sitting at home resting.
It's just like this series.
It's different than the Thunder. Now, to be fair, the Thunder were playing a broken Grizzlies team in round 1, but I was not impressed per se, but like I was like, okay, good job at sweeping that team that they should have swept because they were that much better than them. And in that Game 4, I was like, that's really easy. Like, that one came down to the clutch. And the Grizzlies were, like, really fighting to show, like, we're not an emotionally broken team. We can win, like, one game in this series, I promise. And they didn't, because the Thunder shut the door on them at the end. And I didn't feel that same level of urgency from OKC in this Game 6. I'm sure it's gonna be like more in Game 7 at home. Obviously, double elimination. Double elimination means both teams could be like either team could be eliminated, right?
No.
It doesn't. Never
Single
mind
elimination.
then. Everyone says single elimination, and I'm like, what does that mean? Uh, Ignore me. Uh, it's do or die, like win or go home. But I would have liked to see that from them in Game 6 for a team that is like in the regular season, they're like that level relative to everybody else. Like they look hungrier than everybody else in the regular season, and that's what gets them through these games. And it's not that like I want to give Denver a lot of credit too, but I've seen the Thunder play with more like hunger than they did in Game 6.
Yeah, I think they had stretches where they had that like sense of urgency and hunger. It kind of like was
There was
seesawed.
that stretch where they went up 9 in the second quarter, but other than that, there was
Yeah.
no stretch where I was like, oh, they came here to like close this out tonight.
Yeah, the Nuggets
I've
had
seen,
more moments and stretches where they were the ones who were,
yeah,
responding to the moment, and the Thunder weren't. They had like that one, and then the Nuggets just punched back. So it's hard to predict how Game 7 is going to go. I'm still staying true to Nuggets in 7, regardless of this AG thing, though in my mind, not having AG makes me really doubtful. Like, I can't lie. It's seeping in, but I still am trying to like hold true to Jokic being the best player in the world and Jamal being a championship player and them already having known what it takes. And the Thunder are going in. This is like new for them. And to the Thunder's credit, I hate them and I don't want to compliment them, but every time we like seem like we're getting a 10-point lead or whatever, the Thunder just come
yeah,
right back every time. And like
yeah,
it's partially due to some Nuggets mistakes, but
yeah.
like they have dudes who just hit a shot or they hit a three, like SGA hits a
Or they
three.
force a turnover.
Yeah, just like immediately. And like their
Get a
process
walk.
is just like good enough that like and repeatable. Like the way that they just deter every pass, like it's like difficult to make. That turnovers can just happen. Like even if you're trying to take care of the ball, they're just putting themselves in
They're
position.
never not playing the passing lanes. They're
Yeah.
never not collapsing on you. They're never not making your life hell. Like it really is like an every possession thing.
Right. So
Is
as much as I wanted to believe they were
wearing
like
you down.
a Utah Jazz scenario where they just had a good regular season, like they are a legit playoff team who at times their inexperience is showing and they can like not live up to the moment. And I'm hoping that's the case for Game 7 and we can just win it again.
Yeah, that would be helpful, wouldn't it? Okay. So let me see any other Game 7 notes I have here. Look, like Denver could absolutely just like prove me wrong, be that 10% and win this game and have like Peyton Watson hit a bunch of shots randomly. That would be
It could
great.
happen.
I do want to talk about Peyton a little bit because I think he's going to play a bigger role in Game 7 just because, like, even if AG plays, he's probably not going to be 100%. He's probably not going to be able to play, full minutes, which sucks in an elimination game, right? I think a lot of people after Game 6 were too high on Peyton's game because of the transition block that he got on JDub. Other than that play, I thought that he only made, or like the vast majority of his plays were negative plays in that game, whether it was missed layups. He took that one turnaround fadeaway when he didn't have an advantage. And like Jokic was on the floor on that possession too. Like if Russ takes that shot, everybody loses their mind. Like with Jokic on the floor, like just get him the ball and we can create something better. Now, if that shot had gone in, maybe everybody's happy, but it obviously doesn't. Peyton hasn't been like a great finisher. On some of those misses, he's immediately getting attacked down the floor in transition. That's something that's really bothered me in this series is Denver's transition defense. Like they probably have won the series already if their transition defense as a team is better than it's been, because that's where like the Thunder are struggling so much to score in the half court that the transition stuff is
So much easier.
just giving them easy points annoying. Um, there was another play where like Russ forces a miss or gets a deflection, and Peyton like kind of lets the ball like slip through his fingers out of bounds instead of just grabbing it, and then they score on the baseline out of bounds. And it's just like those plays. That's the kind of stuff where it's like I know Peyton is capable of like more even flashier plays perhaps at this stage in his career than Aaron Gordon is, but AG makes so many fewer mistakes that stuff like really adds up, and that's the point where maybe even hampered depending on the degree. I'd rather have AG on the floor for more minutes than have to play Peyton more minutes. I don't even know if like how crazy would it be if we get Zeke Naji rotation minutes in a game 7 for
Oh
the
man.
He's played in this series outside of garbage time, hasn't he? Didn't he play like 2 minutes in like game I don't know,
Was it
like
in the
game 5 or
blowout that we got
something?
in game two?
No, no, no.
Oh,
Outside of garbage time.
I don't
He
know.
played like 2 minutes in a
I
game
don't remember this series that he did, but
and was like immediately pulled. Anyway, whatever. Um Yeah, so that's the kind of like gap that I'm talking about. It's like Peyton's gonna get better as a player, but like right now he's not doing like the little stuff, the margin stuff that's gonna help reduce the negatives to the point that his positives can actually shine in a way that results in like a net positive for the team. Um, and I think this has been a much rougher series for him, frankly, than I thought it would be. We talked earlier in the show about how OKC has had issues playing our players off the floor. But there are so many moments in this series with Peyton where I'm like, he's gotten as close as you can get to being played off the floor and then not, but only because we don't really have anybody behind him right now.
yeah.
And so he's definitely been a disappointment for me up until this point in the series. Now he's going to have a big opportunity in game 7. Cuz if he plays well like in his first stint whatever, like AG's like obviously injured, he's going to get more minutes because he can fill that role and like spell AG some, and that could be really big for us. So he has an opportunity to completely, redeem himself in that sense. But like he's the reason honestly that I'm most skeptical, because I'm just like, between Mike and AG both being injured, I don't really trust any of the wings on this team.
Yeah. There was moments where he's really hustled to get some rebounds, whether it's offensive rebounds and like trying to get some blocks and even got some steals. Obviously, he can make big plays on the defensive end. Randomly, we'll hit a three here and there. But yeah, he doesn't make the types of special, like game-changing, winning plays that AG does. I mean, those are in a different universe at this point.
Oh
Not that
yeah,
you're
you
saying,
can't expect
yeah,
that from him necessarily.
but still, like,
But I'm
yeah,
talking about the opposite of that stuff. I'm talking about the stuff that doesn't lose you the game.
yeah, that's what he's got to work on right now. My thing is just like, yeah, the offense isn't like reliable right now, and I hate like playing players who are just not bringing in on that end, even if they're huge defensive playmakers, because I just think it's so important, especially like against a team like this. But there are times where he can cut and like play the dunker spot and get some wide open dunks, like Jokic will find him and stuff. We've seen that even against the Thunder, so maybe there's some more of that we can see from him. Easy buckets rather than just trying to make him do something. He even had an insanely nice finish.
Just make easy buckets.
Just make easy buckets.
If Peyton made his layups in game 7, I would be ecstatic.
He had an insane transition layup in game 6 that I was like, almost like, what?
That was a ridiculous shot, by the way. I completely agree.
Yeah.
He had to, I think it was like go like through Caruso, and then it was kind of an up and under.
Yeah, it was
on the
wild.
other side of the rim.
I was like, that.
And he was super casual about it too. Like
it looked
and
like.
I'm like, wait, can you make the easy ones though? Also, like.
Yeah, that was like a vet move, super in control. Like it was like automatic, and I was like, whoa! I was like double taking on that, but we'll see how he does. It's definitely a huge one for him.
All right. Anybody else that you're taking, that you're kind of looking out for in Game 7 before we move on to the other series?
I think I've said it all. Let's go to the other series, because I do think it's interesting to see, since we're doing the show now, if we do win, what we would pick for Denver and Minnesota. Before the game tomorrow, we have a chance to answer this question. So do you want to talk about Warriors Wolves before we get to that, or you want to just go?
Yeah, we could just jump into that. So the Wolves took care of these stuffless Warriors in 5. I was really hoping that the Warriors could win one more game and like force a game 6. Even then it would have been a long shot because you can't expect Steph to come off like cold basically and like save the Warriors. So that was unfortunate. I just felt like the Wolves really got off easy because uh the Warriors like they can't score. They can't score. Their offense is so bad. um
Poor
and their defense
Caitlin.
was pretty good until like the last like game and a half, I think, of the series. The Warriors defense was. And I don't think that having Steph there would have really altered that based on what we saw, early in game 1. So I thought that was just not just a missed opportunity for the Warriors, but kind of a lucky break for the Wolves, as good
Oh,
as
it
I think the
was.
Wolves are. But let's talk about the next round because we don't know who the Wolves are going to play in the Western Conference Finals. And by the way, I think the Wolves are the first like consecutive Western Conference finalists since the 2019 Warriors, which is crazy.
Mm,
The West has just been a spin cycle
yeah.
since the KD Warriors fell. But would you pick the Thunder or Denver over Minnesota coming off of a 7-game series, a hard-fought 7-game series?
I definitely would. I may be underestimating the Wolves, and I may have been all season just
Would you
because,
pick would you pick either? Like you're like Denver or the
yeah,
Thunder could definitely smoke this team.
I wouldn't say smoke. I think Thunder have a better chance to smoke them because they've only played one 7 game series versus the
Right.
Nuggets who have played 2 in this scenario. But plus, the Wolves have some weird thing with the Nuggets. I like the idea that the Nuggets would respond and want to get their revenge and be really motivated, but we are so banged up too, so you really have to consider that when picking them. But I think in that scenario, I would try to pick like Nuggets in 6 versus 7. I would stray away from my Nuggets in 7 picks because otherwise, if it
The
goes to
Sixers are
7, we're like,
amazing.
God damn, we
Yeah.
cannot do another 7 game series. Like that isn't.
Both teams would have home court advantage over Minnesota. That didn't matter for Denver last year because they lost 3 home games in that series.
Yeah.
But the Thunder would also have home court, and that would mean not only you get a game 7 at home, but you get the first 2 games of the series at home, which I think is the bigger deal. To having home court advantage. Um,
But yeah, I think OKC could still beat them. I just don't really know what to make of the Wolves. Like they're so confusing, and especially like I agree. We have a comment in the chat. Orange Soda saying that side of the West bracket was weak, and I kind of agree. Like the Rockets, they're inexperienced. The Warriors were able to get rid of them, but the Warriors are still like Jimmy. The Jimmy trade's working out, so like they were a good team. Steph gets hurt, and the
I
Wolves
mean,
beat
Steph's
them.
injury was like the main thing
Yeah,
because I honestly thought that
the Warriors could have beat them.
it wasn't like round 1 where I genuinely I misanalyzed the matchup advantage that the Lakers were supposed to have over the Wolves. They didn't have it, but the Warriors I felt like did, but they can't create offense without Steph Curry. That's just the like fundamental thing there.
I don't like the idea of
Yeah.
Jaden McDaniels having a field day on our very tired players. But and I know they're shooting better, but I still think it's easier for Jokic without Cat. If AG's limited, then Julius Randle can match up hunt whoever's filling in for him, which sucks. But if AG was playing, I'd feel less worried about Julius Randle as a factor.
Honestly, even if AG were playing, like Julius kind of destroys AG even the regular
Oh, does he?
season. That was true even when he was on the Knicks. To where like Julius is a big, strong dude. Like I've seen him match up hunt and bully Giannis.
Yeah.
Uh,
The
to great
Lakers definitely had
success.
nothing for him,
So,
which I
oh,
thought,
definitely.
yeah.
I mean, the Lakers didn't have anything for anybody, to be completely honest. I can't believe we let them
I
get
forgot
3
that
seeds.
series even
It's just
happened. Speaking of that
disgraceful.
side of the bracket, like, damn.
All right, well, like blacked it out. I do think that the Thunder they'd have to fight. Like, I don't think they smoke the Wolves necessarily. Uh, and I think they would if they had finished Denver off like sooner. Like, not to say that they will, but in the hypothetical scenario that they advance, finishing in 7 gives you less rest, and I think they need it to play this Wolves team. But I think they still win because I continue to contend that the main matchup advantage that anybody can have against the Timberwolves is just straight up rim protection, and the Thunder have it in spades between Chet, Ihart, and all their guards. Frankly, like these guys guard the paint really like nobody else. Um, Now, maybe the Wolves figure out like, oh, we could just spam corner threes, and then the Thunder like
Yeah.
just keep giving us that shot, and they can make those shots. I think they're more reliable in making those shots than Denver is right now. Um, but yeah, I just like I don't trust the Wolves to like consistently operate at like a high level intelligence wise with their offense. Um, because I've watched them play even in the series that they've won, where I'm like, they should have probably been blowing out the Lakers in more of these games instead of like coming down to the wire. And they just couldn't score. Um, and the Lakers, their problem in that series was on both sides of the ball, but like defensively, they weren't great, and the Wolves were still only putting up like less than 110 in a lot of those games. I think the Thunder would be able to hold them down even more than the Warriors did, and that would create an issue. Now, I think OKC's struggle in that series would be offense, just like it is with Denver, but maybe worse because the Wolves are, I think, an even better defense.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true.
maybe their role guys shoot a little bit better in that series. Like they're just not shooting well against us right now. But you know, defensively, I think that the Thunder could still make it a game where they win like 75-67 kind of thing. That's how little regard I have for the Wolves offense, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
But if Denver made it through game 7 miraculously, I honestly just don't think they have the bodies
It's a concern.
to survive a Wolves matchup. That team is so physical and so taxing. And when you think about like AG on half a hamstring trying to play backup 5 versus a Julius Randle, Naz Reid front court, or the Wolves like to play Rudy and Naz together in a lot of minutes too, and like Rudy and Julius, whatever. Like, I don't expect us to grab a single rebound in that scenario. So that
But
would be tough.
yeah, it's gonna be really hard with the injuries we have. But got to get there first. I'd still pick them just because of my Nuggets bias, but I'd have to
Incredible
think.
bias.
I'd have to think more deeply about like if we could match up with them. It just seems
It does
so
help that
hard.
Jamal is like healthy
That's
this
true.
year. I think and we made it through 7 with Jamal playing like, you know, a hot dumpster fire for most of that series.
Yeah, Jokic and
And that's the thing with this team is like they figure out a way, they fight through. They made it to game 7 against the Thunder when I don't think anybody really predicted that they'd make it here, except was it Young Misuk at ESPN did predict Nuggets in 7 for this series. I think he's the only ESPN guy that picked Denver for this series. So.
and he was the only one who picked the Knicks, which is funny.
I know.
I would like it though. Like I know I shouldn't. Actually, I'm not going to say it. Nuggets are winning Game 7, so we don't even have to talk about if the Thunder were going to play them now.
Oh, I see. You're just like, who would you root for or root
Yeah,
against her?
I was gonna say I'd probably
we can talk about our hate agendas
later.
if/when Denver gets eliminated.
All right, let's
we'll
do
have
that.
plenty of time to talk about that.
All right, let's get through the other series and get out of here.
All right, yeah, you mentioned the Knicks. They did finish Boston off in 6. Picked them in 7, so he was wrong on the number of games, but he was right about the winner. Boston was on its way down even before the Tatum injury, but like I mentioned before, their emotional reserves were clearly spent by game 6. Like the heart was just not in it, especially defensively in that game. You could tell that Boston was just done. They were down 27 at half in game 6. The Celtics were, and that was kind of sad. And as a lifelong Boston sports hater, I even felt like, okay, I just feel bad like hating on this team right now. I'm just gonna turn the TV off.
Yeah, with the
I'm not gonna
injuries.
I'm not gonna start
Yeah.
singing their praises or anything, but
Couldn't they
it
lose
was just
without
kind
the
of sad.
injury so we can hate on them more?
Now, again, like I did mention that because I think it's important. The Celtics were on the verge of going down 3-1 even before Tatum got injured. They were down in that game late in the fourth quarter.
And Tatum was
And the
cooking.
Knicks had just forced another turnover and were going to score on it regardless of Tatum's injury. So they were probably going to win this series regardless. Um, One of the things I felt like helped over the course, like as the series went on, and it reminded me a lot of the Knicks, um, their series against the Sixers last year. Uh, the Knicks offense was just not good throughout most of this series. But especially early, they were winning this series on defense and tough shot making at the ends of games by Jalen Brunson. But he in particular was very stifled by Drew Holiday's defense. So I mentioned how I was impressed with Drew Holiday's defense this playoffs. He was doing a really good job staying with Jalen Brunson in a way that I haven't seen from him. I mean, I didn't even see it from him last playoff run, and I thought he was good. But at all in the regular season the last 2 years, where I think that Drew in particular, but the Celtics broadly, struggle with quick, shifty guards in particular. And I think Brunson is that. But Drew did a great job staying with Brunson throughout most of these games. But Jalen really started to figure him out as the series went on. And I don't think the Celtics did enough to vary up the looks on Jalen like the Sixers did last year. Now, the Knicks won both series anyway, so it kind of didn't matter. But at least, Nick Nurse throwing a couple of different bodies at Brunson gave him more to think about. Whereas I felt like having Drew on him as much as Boston did gave him a chance to kind of figure out how to attack him. And I think that really manifested and paid off in a big way by this game 6, where yes, most of the gap in that game offensively was like Boston had given up defensively. Drew was still fighting though in his one-on-one matchup. I just think Brunson did a good job figuring out his tendencies as a defender, figuring out how to get free throws, get to his spots, get to his shots very easily. And that was a big factor in the Knicks' 2 wins in this series, where they were offensive wins, as opposed to the first 2 wins that were defensive wins in this series.
Right. Yeah. I also think the Celtics had that championship type of hangover. It wasn't like a horrible hangover, but we haven't seen repeat champions in a long time. That's the biggest storyline for me, for
We
sure.
have not seen a defending champion go to the conference finals since the 2019 Warriors.
Yeah. That's crazy to
Now,
think
we've
about.
seen I mentioned earlier with the Wolves being the first consecutive conference finalist in the West since the 2019 Warriors. In the East, the Celtics, they keep going to conference finals. The East, the Heat have also done it a couple times, so that's different. But as a defending champion, we're entering the would it be the 7th? I guess the 6th consecutive year that the defending champion doesn't make it past the second round.
Yeah.
So
It is crazy to think
repeating
about.
is hard.
Especially in a
Um,
more parity driven league. Like, you don't have a super team Warriors to go to almost three-peat the championship. So this may be what the NBA wants. Maybe Adam Silver's happy. Obviously, we didn't do it. We were supposed to be doing it every other year, like Calvin said. It's still up in the air. I actually am surprised that we've come this close, even as is. So, yeah, Knicks. I mean, I was starting to worry about the Knicks, even if the Nuggets got to the finals. I'm like, damn, they're playing good. The Pacers look good. They're just so much less beat up than people in
And the
the
Knicks are a tough
West.
matchup for us.
Yeah, they smoked us in the regular
The Knicks
season.
and the Cavs were the teams I was most worried about in the East if the Nuggets had made the finals.
Yeah, and it's just only one team's going to come out, of course. But I was just like, oh, and then you get past the Wolves, and it's another challenging. Like, it's not. I don't feel like either of these teams would be like some shitty East team that will run over, even though I still disrespect the
Oh,
East.
none of these are the none of
Yeah,
these are the 23 Heat,
but it's
for
just
example.
we're just so beat up too. Like, so even if I thought, hey, we'll have an edge over any East team, the West is just beating the shit out of each other, and the East.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
To the point where, even if the Wolves kind of cakewalked through a beaten up Nuggets or Thunder team in that scenario, I don't think that they're going to have a cakewalk in the finals either.
no, yeah, no.
Because now it's going to be Knicks or Pacers. That's confirmed. The Pacers, especially, like, they just keep coming at you. They do not care how slow you want to play. They're going to play as fast as they want to play. And I think that neutralizes a lot of the Wolves' advantages defensively. And it neutralizes a lot of what most teams want to do defensively, and that's how the Pacers, how they get you.
Imagine the
Uh,
Pacers winning the finals like in the year that Nico's like, defense will win you championships.
Tyrese Halliburton Finals MVP in the year that Nico Harrison said defense wins championships a million
And
times.
Tyrese, the most underrated player. Ugh,
Yeah, that's true.
jeez.
That's the thing is like
Or sorry, they said he was the
uh
most overrated player.
overrated player, yeah. The narrative victory of either a Knicks or Pacers championship would be, like you said, the Tyrese Halliburton most overrated player. That would be like a total depth win, by the way. As good as Tyrese Halliburton is, like, that team is a team
They
that's
got
winning with
dudes.
depth and with pace. They're like, everything slows down in the playoffs, and the Pacers are like, fuck that, like, as if. Um, and then with the Knicks, we had the comments from Becky Hammond 2 years ago, not even 2 years ago, where she said that Jalen Brunson can't be the best player on a championship team because he's too small. Like, you can't have a small guard as the best player on your team unless they're literally Steph Curry. And so there's
Funny. I
that.
forgot about those comments.
What if we got a Wolves Knicks finals and it's Julius Randle versus Cat?
Yeah,
And then we see who really won the trade.
that would definitely
You know?
annoy the shit out of me, but whatever.
All this could happen, and then we end up in the situation where, like, the Thunder win because they're like, well, they were the best team all regular season, and the regular season is supposed to matter. But people want narratives. I don't know. We're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens. And if Denver wins it, like, what a freaking story!
The
that
narratives
would
from Denver
be.
winning it would be. I mean, I have
It
already
would
thought
actually
ahead to
be.
these. As soon as we won Thunder
Yeah.
game one, I was like, all the championship narratives were running through my head. But
Oh my god.
we still have so long to go.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of legacy talk, but it would be a real blow for my regular season matters camp, honestly, because this regular season was quite the shit show. Okay, I want a couple questions about the East series before we wrap things up. Does the series win against Boston? They went up 3-1. They won in dominant fashion in Game 6. That's a decisive series win. I think any series win in less than 7 is a decisive series win. Does that secure Tom Thibodeau's job in New York?
For how long?
For at least another year. Because I was even joking after game, because they went up 3-1. Or they went up 2-0. And then I think the Knicks lost game 3 and they won game 4, right? And then they lost game 5. And I was joking, I think in both losses, like, if Thibs blows a series lead, is his, keister on the fire, on the hot seat, for that coaching job.
It is hard to make a decision.
Especially after the way that both of the last 2 years ended. Like, are they going to run out of gas again? Is that going to be the thing?
Well, like you said, they were looking like they might have won the series even without the Tatum injury. And I know it would be hard to evaluate the team and the coach winning just because Tatum tore his Achilles. But I'd say at least in the off season it does, and then we'll see how they're doing in the regular season, and if there's like some weird shit going down and they're dissatisfied, and if the players start acting up or are not into Thibs, I could see them moving on mid-season for some reason. But
I see.
shenanigans.
I noticed a comment from my fiance in the chat. He said, "Cavs and Celtics looking at OKC like, quote, one of us, one of
You're
us, one
doxing your
of us."
fiance on chat.
I mean, oh no, everyone knows he's Turtle Lord.
There he is.
Yeah, the 60-win teams are dropping like 5. This is a thing. I think it's been quite a long time since there wasn't a 1 seed in the finals. Is the other thing. And now the Cavs have been eliminated. The 2 seed in the East has been eliminated also. So it's kind of like,
if we eliminated the
KC
Thunder,
like has to get there. This is my like, I want the Nuggets to win. I want the Nuggets to make the finals. Like, I want that to happen. But in terms of the long-term implications, like, if someone besides OKC at this point won the title, it's a really big blow to the regular season matters people. And I think part of that is like with parity, like Adam Silver sort of inadvertently undermined his like other agenda, which is like getting people to care about the regular season.
Yeah. They need to do so many different things that they're probably never going to do unless they get a new commissioner in there.
They need to shorten the regular season. I don't think that's a commissioner thing. I think that's a stakeholders thing. I think it's everybody involved doesn't want to lose out on
the advertisers. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ratings could go up though if they shorten it and the stakes go up. There's like an upside to that. I just don't know if they're willing to bet
I agree with that, but nobody wants to give up the short-term money for that and take that risk. Okay, last question here that I've got. Why can't the Pacers win the title? Like, they've shown that they can score on anybody.
At this point,
and they can keep playing their fast game against whoever.
I guess the only issue would be like a team, like maybe matchup hunting them to death on defense and then their defense crumbling in some way.
The defense hasn't been, like, it's been impressive in some games, especially in the Cavs series. Like, I was pretty impressed with some of the stuff that they did defensively. But they're winning these games because, like, the other team can't stop them. So if they do encounter a team that can at least slow them down, but then they can't stop.
Yeah.
Like,
they'll play some more.
We've talked about, like, would OKC actually struggle against the Pacers because they're not that good at efficiently matchup hunting and, like, getting a good shot out of it every time.
And I think that's what they would have to do.
Slow down the Pacers enough to where that wouldn't matter.
Yeah. It would be. The Pacers have a chance. Like, I definitely don't look at them, like I said, like, again, I don't look at them like the 8 seed Heat. Like, they're like,
I could see any team left winning the title right now, which I didn't necessarily see last year, where it was like, I think it's going to be Denver or it's going to be Boston and nobody else.
Yeah, it is pretty wide open right now, I would say. If Thunder get past the Nuggets, I think they have still, like, a good shot. I think the Wolves have a shot, too. Knicks and Pacers are right there. It's just the Western Conference Finals, how they go is going to be really interesting. Like, what OKC, Wolves, could that go to a Game 7? Like, even Knicks, Pacers, I think is evenly matched. Both teams are going to start getting worn out, or even more worn out if you're Denver. So this is going to be a rough.
That's what they did to the Knicks last year, right? Like,
yeah.
the Knicks were already super injured, and the Pacers were just like, we're just going to keep running you in transition. You can't stop us. Yeah, so that is tough. I saw a really funny comment from Genghis Juan. We're all throwing heat packs in the rematch series if Denver makes it past the Thunder and makes it to the Western Conference Finals. The fans are all going to throw heat packs.
Like how the Clippers had the little horses, we can like just start throwing heat packs for fun.
Yeah, that would kind of be like. That was like a dark Denver moment, though. That's not like making fun of something Wolves related.
You have to embrace it. If you embrace it can't be used to hurt us.
True. Well, Will, any last topics that you wanted to cover before we wrap
No.
things up here?
Just thanks for joining, everybody. If you're still in the chat, like, we love you, and it was fun talking to you guys and shouting you out. And Nuggets in 7.
Nuggets in 7. If you made it this far, we appreciate the heck out of you guys. If you like our content and would like to support the channel, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Music, or Amazon Music. And follow us on socials or on Instagram, TikTok, and elsewhere. Check out the description for all our social links. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks.
Please, no more losing.
No more losing.